According to stereotypes, Italian mothers and grandmothers, known for being caring and loving, always ensure that their children are well fed and showered with affection. Well, Leonarda Cianciulli was clearly cut from a different cloth. Of course, she adored her children, but when she found out in 1939 that her eldest and most beloved son was about to be drafted into the army, she decided that to save him, human sacrifices were necessary. Childhood and early years. Leonarda Cianciulli was born on April 18, 1894, in the small town of Montella, located in the Campania region of Italy. She was born into a poor and destitute family, where life was filled with tragedies from the very beginning. Her mother, Emilia Di Nardo, was forced to marry Leonarda's father after he raped her. Due to this forced marriage, Emilia developed a deep hatred for her daughter, believing her to be the cause of her own misfortunes. As a result, Leonarda grew up in an atmosphere of constant hostility and indifference, which left a profound impact on her psyche. Leonarda's childhood was filled with grief and suffering. Her mother treated her cruelly and coldly, which created feelings of rejection and low self-esteem in the young girl. Even in her youth, Leonarda attempted to end her life by suicide several times, but all attempts were unsuccessful. These events further deepened her sense of isolation and doom. She began to believe that her life was cursed from birth, and this superstition stayed with her throughout her life. Marriage and relocations. In 1917, Leonarda married Raffaele Pansardi, a minor official despite her mother's objections, who believed that this marriage would only worsen her daughter's situation. Leonarda's mother was convinced that her daughter had once again made a mistake by choosing a husband who had neither money nor social status. As a result, the relationship between mother and daughter further deteriorated. Leonarda, however, believed that this marriage could give her a new beginning and a chance at a happy life. However, married life did not bring the desired peace. After the wedding, Leonarda and Raphael began living together, but their marriage faced many difficulties. The couple experienced constant financial hardships, and in addition to this, Leonarda was convinced that she was being haunted by her mother's curses. She believed that the curse her mother had placed on her affected all aspects of her life, including her financial situation and the health of her children. Over the following years, the couple changed their place of residence many times, moving from one city to another in search of a better life. However, each new relocation brought only new problems. Leonarda and Raphael became parents to many children, but out of 17 pregnancies, only 4 children survived to adulthood. The others either died during childbirth or shortly after. This series of losses dealt a terrible blow to Leonarda's mental state. She became even more superstitious and began seeking answers in the supernatural. Fortune-telling and fears. In 1930, the couple moved to Correggio, a small town in the Emilia-Romagna region. Here, Leonarda decided to open her own shop, where she sold not only trinkets, but also offered services of fortune-telling and curse removal. She gained a reputation as a wise woman who could help solve any problem, and people turned to her for advice and treatment. Her knowledge in the field of magic and occultism quickly became known in the town, and Leonarda began to enjoy a certain authority among the locals. However, the fear of the future never left her. Leonarda became a constant visitor to various fortune-tellers and seers who only intensified her anxiety. One fortune-teller predicted that all her children would die young, which became a real nightmare for Leonarda. Another fortune teller foretold that she would end her life in prison or in a psychiatric hospital. These prophecies weighed heavily on her psyche and became the basis for her future horrific actions. Fear for her son's life. The turning point came with the announcement of the mobilization of her eldest son, Giuseppe, into the army in 1939 when Italy entered World War II. Leonarda was convinced that he would die in the war, and her fear of losing her remaining children grew. She began to look for ways to protect Giuseppe, but all the usual methods seemed insufficient to her. Mixing her superstitions and fears, Leonarda decided that human sacrifices were needed to preserve her son's life. The idea of human sacrifice arose in Leonarda's mind as a result of a combination of her superstitions and her desire to protect her son. She decided that if she sacrificed other people, she could avoid the curse and save her son from death in the war. In her search for victims, Leonarda turned her attention to lonely and trusting women who often came to her for help. Crimes. Her first victim was Faustina Sette, a lonely elderly woman who was desperately looking for a husband. Faustina was known for her loneliness and desire to find love, so she turned to Leonarda, hoping for help. Leonarda assured her that she had found the perfect candidate in another city. She asked Faustina to write letters to her relatives, explaining her disappearance so that they would not worry. After that, Leonarda invited the woman to her home for a farewell dinner, where she gave her wine laced with a narcotic substance. When Faustina lost consciousness, Leonarda struck her on the head with an axe, killing her on the spot. Leonarda dismembered Faustina's body and began using it for her magic. She collected the woman's blood in a bowl and melted the body in a cauldron to obtain soap. Her intention was to use parts of the victim's body in rituals that were supposed to protect her son. Leonarda mixed Faustina's blood with flour, sugar, eggs, milk, and chocolate to make cupcakes, which she fed to her guests and her son. Leonarda's second victim was Francesca Soavi, who was looking for a job. Leonarda promised to find her a good job in another city and again asked her to write letters to her relatives. As in the first case, Leonarda invited Francesca to her home, where she gave her wine with a narcotic and ended her life with an axe. The procedure for disposing of the body was similar. The body was dismembered, and the blood was used to make cupcakes. The third and final victim was Virginia Cacioppo, a former opera singer who dreamed of returning to her profession. Leonarda took advantage of her naivety, promising her a job as a secretary to a famous impresario at the Milan Theater. Virginia wrote letters to her loved ones, as Leonarda advised her, and then went to meet her fate. Leonarda repeated her ritual, a narcotic in the wine, an axe blow, and the division of the body. But this time she decided to make soap from Virginia's body, mixing her fat with perfumes and other ingredients. She later said that this soap was very soft and fragrant, and the cupcakes made from her blood were sweeter. Discovery of the crimes and trial. Leonarda's crimes remained unnoticed until a relative of Virginia Cacioppo, who was suspicious of the singer's sudden disappearance, went to the police. The police began an investigation, and eventually the traces led to Leonarda Cianciulli. During a search of her home, numerous pieces of evidence were found, including the victims' letters, their belongings, and other incriminating items. Leonarda did not try to deny her guilt. During the trial in 1946, she confessed to all her crimes with horrifying detail. She described her methods, motives, and rituals in detail. At the trial, she behaved defiantly, showing no remorse or shame for her actions. Forensic experts confirmed that her crimes were committed with particular cruelty and were premeditated. Leonarda Cianciulli was sentenced to 30 years in prison and 3 years in a psychiatric hospital, which, as she herself claimed, fully corresponded to the predictions of one of the fortune tellers. She spent the rest of her life in prison and a psychiatric institution, where she died on October 15, 1970. Seven. Aftermath and legacy. The story of Leonarda Cianciulli has become one of the most horrific episodes in Italian criminal history. It attracted public attention and became the subject of numerous studies, books, and documentaries. Her case became an example of how superstitions, fears, and mental disorders can lead to incredibly horrific consequences. Leonarda Cianciulli is remembered not only as a serial killer, but also as an example of how deep psychological traumas and superstitions can turn a person into a monster. Her story still evokes horror and curiosity, leaving many questions about the limits of human cruelty and what can push a person to such actions.